Hello, class. My name is Joseph Cleary, and this is going to be the Argo and Marie Merit case, financial plan, all of that. So, first of all, we're going to start with Argo and Marie. As you see on the screen right here, Argo is 60 years old, and Marie is 56 years old. They both have about a $50,000 salary per year, which is going to come into effect later on in the slideshow. I will explain everything about that. So, like I said, they both have 50,000, which means they were both at 100,000. Argo has two kids from a previous marriage, but Argo and Marie have been married for the past 16 years, and they do not have any kids together, but they treat their kids. They treat Argo like their kids, Argo's kids like their kids, and Argo's grandkids like their grandkids as well. So without further ado, I am Joseph Cleary, and I will be doing the Argo and Marie financial plan and present it to you guys today. First off, we're going to look at the financial statement, the income sheet, income statement, and the cash flows, and that is presented right here. This is a picture taken out of the book for the case file. Like I said before, the cash flow, Argo right at the top, Argo's salary is 50,000 and Marie's salary is 50,000 as well, which totals out to $100,000 for the both of them combined. But a big factor that I saw when looking at this was the cash outflow, their savings. Their savings, Argo right now has $0. That's not good, Argo. That is not good, especially since they're talking about retiring in the next 6 years. Then you look at Marie, her 401k plan right now has 5,000. It's something, but if you want to get retirement in 6 years, you've got to get on that ASAP. Go ahead, look at all the rest. You see the savings. Obviously, that number's a little lower than we expected it to be. But looking at the taxes, the debt, living expenses, and insurance payment, it all totals out to the bottom right picture of this slide right here. You see how it says $1,915, $1,915. That is the total cash flow they're going to have after spending on all their insurance payments, all of their living expenses, debt payments, taxes, everything. That is everything taken out of their 100,000. So with only being 1,915, it is not looking good for them to want to retire as one of their goals in 6 years. There's going to be some major upgrades for stuff to happen like that, but we will talk about that more on the next coming slides. But I'll go ahead and look at the next slide. It is financial statements continued. We're talking about the personal net worth, which is steady below. It's just see how much a person is worth, basically. And it has the personal net worth is their total assets, their total debts equals their total net worth. And as stated in the book, it says their total net worth is $500,000 as of right now in 2017. So we have a lot of work to do to get that up so they can retire in 6 years, which is their main goal. Now looking at the life insurance ratio, I picked this one just to throw something new out there so we can talk about that. Life insurance ratio is just you take the salary per person and multiply it by 10. So if you're looking at the income statement, we'll go back a page real quick. You see they're both 50,000. So you would do 50,000 times 10, which is 500,000 for Argo, and then 500,000 for Marie. So their life insurance ratio would be about $1 million for the both of them combined. Obviously, when you're looking at this for ratios, you can look into current ratio, you can look into all sorts of stuff like that. But these are the two that I decided to talk about on the income statement. And with that being said, we're going to move ahead onto the balance sheet. And this is where a lot of things get interesting because you can really see where their money's going to, what kind of assets they have, what kind of liabilities they have. So we go ahead and look at the left side. This is the asset side of the balance sheet. And we're going to look and you see that their total assets all the way at the bottom is $771,740. So their total assets, it's up there. But obviously, like I said, with them wanting to retire in 6 years, we wish it was a little bit more in the investment plan, a little bit more in that situation, but we're going to be okay with it. We'll work on it. And the biggest thing to look at on the liability side is in the long-term liabilities, the principal residence mortgage, because in their client goals at the beginning, they said that they didn't want to worry about the mortgage until they were in retirement, so they're not worried about paying it now. But since you're waiting until retirement about it, you're going to have to add the mortgage amount towards your retirement fund just so you have enough to pay for that as well. With looking about that, you got to think with the 233,000, you see total investment is 334,000, so it can your investments right now can counteract the mortgage, but then you got to have extra money to save up for retirement still. It can't just be for paying off mortgage. You got to have money to live for retirement, paying your expenses for your house, your food, all sorts of stuff. And like I stated on the last slide, the total net worth is also stated right here in the balance statement on the balance sheet, which is 500,000, like I stated before. Now looking at the current ratios for these two statements, for this statement, the two that I picked are actually on the next slide, but it is the debt to asset ratio. And when we talk about the debt to asset ratio, it is pretty much just the liabilities divided by your total assets. So when I say liabilities, you look right here on the right side. I hope you guys can see my mouse moving across, but it's right here. The total liabilities is $271,740. And you take that and you divide it by the total assets, which I stated before was $771,740. When you divide those two numbers by each other, you get a 35.2%. And where they're stated right now, the 35.2%, it's a little bit on the lower end of an average debt to asset ratio. A normal debt to asset ratio is right around 40%. So they're not far off, but each percent is actually pretty hard to gain when talking about debt to asset ratio. So 35% below average, we would like to get that up a little bit more. And moving on to current ratio, as you see, it is the big picture in the middle. It is just current assets divided by current liabilities. So you go back to the balance sheet, and we see the current assets is at the top. It is $15,840, and the total current liabilities is $10,486. So you divide those numbers to find the current ratio, and the current ratio for the merits would be approximately 1.51 to 1, which is actually a pretty good current ratio, because a good current ratio is anywhere from 1 to 2. Anywhere in that range is a good current ratio, and the merits happen to fall in that space right now. So they did good with the current ratio. I wish their debt to asset would just go just a little bit higher. It'd make me feel a little bit more comfortable, but we can work on that as well. Moving on to insurance summary. This is probably going to be one of the most interesting parts of the slides, because there's a lot you can do with insurance. It's not just life insurance. It's not just health insurance. You see, like, I have 4 different insurance listed here, and we can talk about the risk in all 4 of them, or we can talk about the positive in all 4. Starting off with Marie Merritt's life insurance. The biggest issue I have with this one is that it's only $50,000 if something were to happen to her. It's only $50,000 that Argo would get. Normally when I'm looking at life insurance, I would like to have at least like 2 years worth of salary like going towards the spouse. So like if say Marie were to pass away, I would like Argo to get at least $100,000. If not, I mean $50,000, like you can still do something with. You're still gonna be able to live for a year and expect the income coming in. The only good thing about Marie's life insurance is that her employment actually pays for it. She does not pay for it at all, as stated in the book. In the case, I believe, it is all paid by her employment. So if something were to happen, it'd be $50,000 given to her. She doesn't have to make payments like a premium for the life insurance. So that's a good plus. You got to take the plus with the negative. Obviously, you can try to get some life insurance that would give you more money, but then you might have to actually pay some more premiums, which will kind of counter-react, because then you have less money to save up for if you're trying to save for retirement. Moving on to health insurance. I think the Merritts have a great health insurance plan right now, just based on the fact that when Argo reaches age 66, they can retire, which means Argo will be getting Social Security instead of paying for health insurance, which is $20,000 a year. That will also come in fact later. Keep that in mind, that Social Security is $20,000 a year annually per person. But since when he's 66, Marie will only be 62 years old. So she's 4 years under. She'd only be 62 years old, but she will actually qualify for the COBRA program, which will help her out with giving her income, giving her health insurance until she is qualified for Medicare. I'm so sorry, I meant Medicare, not Social Security. But she will qualify for Medicare at the age of 65. And when she reaches 65, then she'll get off the COBRA, which is only 3 years. She'll be on the COBRA without health insurance, but then she gets to Medicare, which is at 65, and that'll be her health insurance for the rest of her retirement, as long as Argo's health insurance will be Medicare as well. Moving on to disability insurance, this is probably the biggest one that I had a problem with, is just because of the fact that neither of them have one. Argo doesn't have one, Marie doesn't have one. I wish, I would suggest very highly to get one of these, just based on the fact, like, you never know what's going to happen in the world. The world can take deadly switches, it could take just injury switch. Like, say Argo gets in an accident and he can't move his right arm. He can't go to work, obviously, so what's he going to do? If he does have disability insurance, he can get covered for that and still be getting an income. But without disability insurance like they have now, there will be no income coming in, which means they will be only living off of Marie's $50,000 a year, which obviously will push back retirement a ton. It'll push back everything they've been planning for the next 6 to 10 years. And moving on to homeowners insurance, this one's a kind of iffy one. I just don't know how much better you're going to get for a homeowner's insurance for the price of the premium you're paying right now. You're not paying a lot for premium. It's like $2,500 a year, $28,000, around that range per year. So it's not like it's a ton. But say something is to happen to the home, you are going to get $66,000 back, which is only 20% of how much the actual house is. So that's why I'm worried about it, because like I said, 20% isn't a ton, but you're still getting some money back. So you're not just thrown on the side of the road if your house burns down or something. You have some kind of insurance. Like I said, like, you can try to find another place that's going to give you a ton more money if something like this would happen. But also you got to think the premium is going to cost a lot more for that. So it's really like, it's one of those risk things you got to think. You got to think, oh, you take care of your house and you don't think it's going to have an accident. You can only pay the $2,800 like you're doing and have a $66,000 risk factor in case something were to happen. But if nothing happens ever, all you're doing is paying $2,800 a year, and that's it. You're not going to get the $66,000, obviously, because the house is still there. That is best case scenario. So it's just how much you want to spend on your homeowner's insurance. Moving on to the investment analysis and risk profile. The biggest thing to look at with this is looking at the RTQ, or Risk Tolerance Questionnaire. When looking at the Risk Tolerance Questionnaire that the Merits filled out, it is obvious that they are both don't want to take risk. They do not like any signs of negative investments. The biggest thing is they do not want to see any, they do not want to see your investment go down. Even if it's down for a day, even if it's down for an hour, they hate the sign of negative investments. They have no intention of making risky investments at all. As you see in the third bullet point, they'd rather not invest than make a risky investment, which shows like they only have 401k, they only have Roth IRAs. Those are one of those investment programs where there's no real risk for it. Because, and why I think this is is because of what happened to Argo 20 years prior. So this is 4 years before they were married. It didn't say if they were together or not, like dating or not. But this is 4 years before they were married. It was 20 years ago. Argo had invested $200,000 into, I think it was like a farm or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he invested in, but it was $200,000, and he lost every single penny of it. If you were to lose $200,000 on any type of investment, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life, because obviously it's going to impact the way you invest. I get why they don't like the negative investment, because it probably brings back the old memories of the biggest risk that Argo made. Obviously, you're going to want to take risk in life, in investment. That's what investment is. It's all about risk. But when you have something that happens to you like what happened to Argo, it's hard to want to take risk again because of the fact that you lost the money. Like you're $200,000 out, you lost it all. It's hard to want to get back into the investment thing. Moving on to tax planning or consideration, as stated in the book, the merits tax bracket is they are the 15th percentile, which is second from the bottom. So they are paying little taxes, not a ton, obviously, $100,000 a year. They're not paying a bunch of taxes on it, but like I said, like taxes, it's pretty simple. You don't have to plan for it. They get taken out of paychecks. They get refunded at the end of the year. I mean, not the end of the year. In April, they get refunded every year. As long as you go to an accountant or you do it online, do it yourself, you got to get your tax refund. The only thing that's going to change about this is how much you want to get deducted in your tax returns. With your job, you can deduct a bunch of stuff that you use for work life. You can deduct equipment. You can deduct all kinds of stuff. But like I said before, taxes, it's not something you really have to take into effect because it is being taken out of your paycheck every week, every other week, bi-weekly, if you get it that way. So it's not something you really have to stress about. It's just more or less it's something you can't avoid. Moving on to the retirement review and analysis. This was the Merit's number one goal. It was listed at the top, and we're going to talk about how much they would need to retire when Argo turns 66 years old. That is 6 years from now. As you know, Argo is 60 years old right now. So you got to think, you got 6 years to get a certain amount. The amount we're going to do is they expected to live to 95 years old, which is, you do the math, 95 minus 66. It is 29 years of retirement life. And let me tell you, that would be an amazing retirement life. You got 29 years just to have fun, do whatever you want. But you have to work hard to get there. Like I said, you have 29 years, and as stated in the book again, it is said that you need 80% of your annual income for each year of your retirement. So you take 80% of 100,000, which is 80,000, and then you go 80,000 multiplied by the 29 years, which is approximately $2,320,000. But you have to take into effect that once you hit 65, you will be getting Social Security. So that is, like I said earlier, it is $20,000 a year. So really, you're getting $40,000 for the both of them in Social Security. So you're going to cut your total needed in half because you need $80,000 to live per year for retirement, as stated earlier, minus the $40,000. So you really only need $40,000 a year saved up, which would turn out to be $1,160,000, which is a lot less than the $2 million, but it is still a ton of money that you have to come up to within 6 years. So to get to $1,160,000 in 6 years, you would need to save up $193,000 for the next 6 years. Of course, you have to take into effect, like I showed you on the income statement, you have to take into effect that you're going to be paying mortgages. But you can take into effect that you will have investment assets such as your Roth IRA and your 401k that you can use towards this. It's not saying you have to use every single penny from your paycheck towards your retirement. It's what you invest in. If you want to invest, which is probably going to be hard for the Merits because what happened, like I said, 20 years ago, but you're going to have to invest if you want to get to the $193,000 per year. So with all this being said, it is most likely not going to happen. I unfortunately have to say that. It is most likely not going to happen that the Argos come up with $1,160,000 in 6 years because, like I said, on the cash flow, they're only having about $1,900 to share at the end of a year, like after all the living expenses and everything like that. Obviously, you got to put into effect that you're going to have your Roth IRA and your 401k. They're going to build over time, so you're going to have that money. But you got to have another income, maybe you get another job, or just invest a little bit more money to get it. I would say if it was up to me to make the decision, I would say maybe push off retirement till Argo is 70, which is 4 more years. But it's 4 less years you have to pay for retirement. But it is also 4 more years you can make more money. You can have your Roth IRA go up and everything like that. So, like I said before, I think 66, which is 6 years away, might be a little bit of a stretch. It could be done. Don't get me wrong. It could be done. But as my opinion, I would say that you should wait just a little bit longer. Moving on to the estate plan review. This is the biggest red flag that I have for the Merritts. They need to get an estate plan, and they need to get an estate plan ASAP. I say this because an estate plan is when, say, unfortunately, we'll have to talk about this, but say Argo passes away and they don't have the estate plan right now. Say he passes away in a week, in a month before they get the plan done. Technically, Marie would probably not get the income. Like, she would not get his assets. What the estate plan does is ensure that the spouse will get the individual assets from the person that has passed away. And like I said, it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's something that needs to be done in case like a tragedy happens. You have to, like I said earlier, you don't know what's going to happen in the world, and you have to be prepared. Like, you don't want to, like, if Argos passes away, like, you don't want him to make it harder for Marie to live. Like, she's already going to be going through a tragedy. You don't want to make it harder for her to live without the assets too. Like, if Argo passes away but the house is in his name, then obviously, like, they're married, so it'd be easier for her to get it, but it would still be a long process for her to get it since it's in his name. It could easily go to the state, like the state could take it from her if they wanted to, but with an estate plan, they can make it so each individual will get their spouse's assets in case of a tragedy like this. And when talking about how to get an estate plan, that is something that's above me because I'm just a financial planner. But obviously, I can advise you where to go to get an estate plan. You have to get a hold of an attorney of estate, which means it is an attorney that only works on estate plans, basically. So they do this job every single day, every day, the whole life. This is their career. This is like my career for financial planning. This is their career. So obviously, I'm going to recommend you to an attorney of estate because they are more likely to give you a better estate plan. Obviously, I can recommend some options for you, but I can't legally make you an estate plan because I'm not that attorney estate. But like I said before, you need to get an estate plan and an estate plan ASAP. Moving on to the overall recommendation, as I just stated, estate plan should be the top of the list. That is what you need to do as soon as possible. You never know what's going to happen in the world. Get the estate plan and make it easier for your loved ones if something is to happen to you. Moving on, if you want to retire at the age of 66, when Argo turns 66, you're most likely going to have to make investments. You're going to have to take the risk. I know that might be scary for you since you lost $200,000 early on, but if you want to retire at 66 and have 29 long years of retirement, you're going to have to make investments. But obviously, if you don't want to make investments, it is your decision. I am just giving you options. If you do not want to make investments, you're going to have to work a little bit longer. Like, obviously, like, your Roth IRA and your 401k could take off a little bit and help you out even more. But if you're not interested in making some risky investments, you're going to have to work a little bit longer. Like I stated before, I would work around like the 7 years old for Argo. Extra 4 years, that's 10 years from now, which can give you a lot of time to come up with money, a lot of time to figure out everything you can figure out. See if we can even get retirement at 70. Maybe it gets pushed back a little bit. Maybe it doesn't. It's something we can just look forward to and we can talk about in the future. Lastly, we're going to talk about the implementation plan and timeline. So I'm going to give you a situation if you were to wait until Argo turns age 70. Like I stated before, when we were on the retirement slide, I talked about what happened at age 66. So this is an extra 4 years. Say you do decide to go with waiting instead of making investments. If you were to wait until age 70 for Argo, you would think that's 10 years from now, correct? But instead of saving up 29 years worth of retirement, you only have to save 25 years. 95 expected age to live minus the 70 where you start retirement, 25 years, and you multiply that by the same amount, which is 80% of your annual salary, which would be 80,000. So 80,000 times 25 years would be 2 million on the dot. So that is 360,000 less dollars than you would have to do before, but then you also have to take into effect the Social Security because you will still be getting that once you retire. And once you get that, that is also, again, you're going to cut your thing in half because both will be getting 20,000 a year, which means it would be 40,000 for the both of them combined, meaning that they will only need $1 million on the dot for retirement for 25 years of living. And to get that to get that $1 million, you may think that might be a stretch. Yes, it could be a little bit of a stretch, but you got to look into it. Like 1 million, you'll have an extra 4 years, so you have 10 years to save up to $1 million worth of assets, and just enough so you can live for 25 years. Like stated before, you have the $500,000 net worth. You can use that if you wanted to. You have your investments that you can take away from the one. So say you have $300,000 right now in investments. That means you only have to come up with $700,000 instead. But that's right now when you're age 60. 10 years from now, your Roth IRA and your 401k are going to grow. Say it grows in 10 years, say it doubles what it's at right now. Say it doubles what it's at right now. So instead of 300,000, it's at 600,000. So you would only need to save an extra $400,000, but obviously you would still need to make some more investments. They could be less risky investments because it's only 400,000 instead of the 1.16 million you needed the first time. But you would still need to make some kind of investments because without investments, it's still going to be hard to retire at age 70. We can talk about it more. You can tell me how you feel about investing. We can see if we can find some non-risky investments. But at the end of the day, realistically, all investments are going to have risk. That's like you said in your risk test analysis, right? Risk test questionnaire. You said that you guys are scared of taking the risk, but obviously, like, I'm not going to push you to take your risk, but if you wanted to retire a little bit younger, you make some investments, it could pay off, but you also got to think about the fact that it could not pay off, and if it doesn't pay off, you may have to work a little bit longer. Say Argo works until 75, you still get 20 years of retirement if you live to the expected life at 95 years. Obviously, you would like more time in retirement, but 20 years is still a lot. But obviously, it's something we can talk about. It's something we can work for. It depends on like how much you want to invest, how much your Roth IRA goes up, how much your 401k goes up, how much happens in the future. So with all that being said, my works cited is obviously the case in financial planning analysis presentation is the book that we got for the class, and it is pages 265 to 274. That is the case of Argo and Marie Merritt. Thank you guys all for your time. Have a good one.